Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for the up. Let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for you know who. Wanna go, gonna glow.
Aloha and welcome back to another episode of the Ohana Packers Edition podcast. Joe, for the first time in over a month, the Packers have won a football game. I don't know what word I just said. It wasn't quite a cuss word, but it was also a celebratory word.
Right. What was it? Harlan said it was like 51 days since the last time the Packers had played in Lambeau. And of course, that also corresponds with the last time they actually won a game, too. So, yeah, that was crazy.
We'll get into it as our usual segments, but overall, the first thing I want to say is I get it. It was frustrating. It wasn't as clean or as pretty as any of us would have liked it to be. But honestly, this is like the NFL season is a weird like reversal of like, the NCAA basketball tournament has the like catchphrase of survive and advance tied to it. Honestly, at this point of the season, the NFL season is survive and advance at this point. It's all about just racking up wins, trying to figure out what your identity as a team is, stay and or get healthy, and just like that's been the Packers' problems the last 2 years is that they've won their opening game, or no, they haven't won their opening, but they started the season off like 2-2, 3-1, and then they've gotten in the hole after that and stuff. At the end of the season, they're climbing out of the hole to try and make the playoffs. So, like I said, we'll get into it. There's a couple points that I know that we'll be touching on that we've been touching on for the past month, but overall, like, I'm not here to just like gaslight you about what how the game went or anything like that, but you should be happy that you're young. This is still the youngest team in the NFL that they figured out how to win game that and like we brought it up in the preview episode. I hate big point spreads because Andy Herman kind of pointed this out in a bunch of his episodes on Pack a Day this week, where it's like the big point spreads, what it does is it makes any win undesirable, basically, because it's like you win by 30, it's like, okay, great, you were supposed to do that. That team sucks. If you barely win, it's like, oh, you've got problems kind of thing and stuff. And if you lose, that's the main thing, is like you didn't fucking blow it and you're still undefeated at home. Yes, there's a lot of things to get better at, but we'll get into it, but I stick by most of it should be improvable or correctable.
Yeah, I mean, like I was talking with Brian on our post-game show, it wasn't pretty, but it was a win. So we just kind of be happy with the fact that it was a win and it wasn't pretty. But, I mean, it goes back to a lot of the same stuff that we've talked about for the last month when it comes to LaFleur and his team, and a little bit with what's going weird with the Halfley defense. But, overall it was a victory. It was a team that we were supposed to beat, so you can't ask for much more than that.
Yep. Do you want to just go into our segments?
Sure.
Fresh cheese.
I'm going to take the first one because I got to talk about this. I'm going to be riding high with this kid until the wheels fall off, just because of everything that happened and leading up to the draft. And I pretty much I gotta ride it because I called my shot on this kid, and that's Matthew Golden. I said it on the post-game show that the way he was moving around the field and when he had the ball in his hand, the way he was making his catches, he already looks like he is on tap to be that number one wide receiver. Somebody, I can't remember what account did it on the Elon machine, was passing something around leading up to this game that, well, will Golden just end up being another number two like we've, in the long line of number twos that we have, or is he going to make himself actually the wide receiver one? And the way he was moving around today, especially once he had the ball in his hand, this kid's special. And I would have loved for him to be able to cap it off with a touchdown to get his first one of the season on tap, but what was it, 86 yards on 5 catches, and then another
Just three
16,
catches, 5 targets.
3 catches, 5 targets, and then he had another 16 on the ground with 2 rushes. So I couldn't remember the catch when I was talking with Brian, but it maybe you would know it a little bit better. But it was the one where he was like crossing the field, and then he makes this like jump step, and
Oh yeah, it was
they,
just a hitch. It was just a short hitch, and
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and he jump step and basically juked the defender out of his shoes and took it for another 5-10 yards. And I just couldn't believe how he was moving, because that you would see out of like a Devontae or a Greg Jennings or somebody like that who
Jennings is
had
the
been
one
in
that
the
came to mind. Yeah, for me
yeah
because
that had been in the league for 3-4 years, but he's only in his sixth game or sixth week, fifth game, and I'm really excited for him. I know the big thing is once we get Watson on the field, how's the room going to look when that happens? Is Golden still going to be fighting for targets because of what Watson can bring, or is he going to be able to continue to build on what he's already been doing? But man, I'm really looking forward to seeing how this kid can turn out.
yeah, I mean, I always really liked Golden as a target too. My whole thing was I was just never sure they were going to actually pick him at the spot you would have to take him to get him in the draft. And I mean, I'm so glad that they finally just picked the fucking receiver in the first round instead of trying to reinvent the wheel and getting way too cute with the pick. That's how you end up with a Jordan Morgan, Eric Stokes kind of pick where it's like, I guess it's a need and you're kind of forcing it because you're holding these like, oh, we don't pick first round receivers and all that kind of stuff. But like you said, the
And in a way,
playmaking
kind of like the Quay Walker and Devontae Wyatt
a
picks.
little bit too, yeah. I do, we'll get back to those two are proving how important they are to this defense. But I agree. Like, I appreciate that they just truly went best player on the board. And the biggest thing for Packers fans, and, everyone's seen the advanced stats about how he's like the best separator in the league and all that kind of stuff. But I think the most important thing is that he is making plays down the field. It's not screen passes. It's not like trick play, like or gadgety plays or anything. Like, yes, he's getting reverses, he's getting those swing passes and stuff, but he's making his hay on like he's got the play against the Cowboys last week. He's got the hitch that he turned into a catch and run that you talked about, and he's got the massive third down conversion when since he was trying to make the game more interesting than it deserved to be at that junction of the game. But like I think people don't recognize how like massive that impact is that he's making that kind of a direct impact on this offense this early. And I know that he's a first round pick and stuff, but it's not like he's this like huge target or he's getting fed a bunch of throws and stuff like that. Like he's getting his impact sprinkled in during the game and stuff. You just have to really enjoy watching him play because it's just so important for this offense to get more playmakers in, especially if the O line is going to continue to be a black spot on the team. But yeah, just gotta really love seeing what we're getting out of Golden so far.
And it's not like he was like a Calvin Johnson type, top
Right,
five draft pick. He was still bottom of the draft, which is nothing against, wrong with him. But I know where the knocks are on him.
right. Yeah, he's
You
not
know,
the biggest guy. Yeah, the speed. Like, does he play to the? And that's my thing too. Is like the 4.29, it's more of that it's that play on the hitch where it's like it's like a rubber band exploding when he breaks, like when he makes a break in the open field. He just like he snaps and he's gone kind of thing and stuff. And that's the kind of, like you said, it's it's Jennings like where he catches a hitch and it's like, oh, he just split two guys who had him dead to rights kind of thing. Like Jennings used to do that a bunch. What's it called? Golden did it on that play. Like Dobbs is really reliable. Wicks has been reliable to start this season, but they don't offer that kind of game breaking athleticism, that elite change of direction and explosiveness skill. And that's the kind of stuff that's going to add an extra dimension to this offense. And it's an absolutely necessary thing to get him. That's the thing, too, is like I see so many people that are like, get his target share, his play share up and stuff. But on one hand, I do think he's picking up the playbook at a really good pace, but you also don't want to overload him to where he's not out there just playing. And like Jordan is a guy where he's gonna throw the ball where someone's supposed to be, kind of thing. Like he's just gonna lay it out there, and he'll and I. That's one of those things I really appreciate, that he's not afraid to look stupid, because that was one of the things with Rodgers, is it's like, if this guy isn't running this route the exact way that, not just how it's drawn on the board, but the exact way I expect him to run it, this fucker's not seeing the ball. Like, Aaron made it so clear that that's how the ship was run. I do appreciate that, like, Jordan's not as good as Aaron was yet. He might, he could elevate himself to that level, but especially where this team has a bunch of warts, potentially some flaws given on how much they're able to cover those things up. It's good that you have a guy that's just like, fuck it, let's roll the ball out and let's just see what's going to happen kind of thing. And, it's the whole, you can't make shots you don't take kind of thing. It's that mindset. And, it gets Jordan into trouble at times, but especially for a guy like Golden, I think LaFleur is trying to do the best job he can of like, let's get him as fully into the offensive system as possible, but also we don't want him getting bogged down by like, oh, Matt, you did these 4 things really good, but you did these dozen things wrong thing and stuff. And so I'm really excited to see where it goes from here. Like you just see the sky is the limit for him. And I know some people are wringing their hands over the like, oh, why is he the reverse guy? Why? Even though he's not the best at reading them all the time, that change of direction skill that you saw on the screen, I mean, you saw the one that he converted the second down into a first down where he cuts on a dime, shows off some decent contact balance, and just, if he's 190, I'm 240, but like, it's just good to see the progression from Golden. So, like, going through. And I know everyone's like, oh my God, when are they going to get him his first touchdown? All that kind of stuff. It's coming. Like, they tried. And they're gonna keep trying. Like they're gonna get there, guys.
Right, and that's what I said. I'm not. I mean, I want to see him. That would have been the capper for today's game. Would have been to have him get his first touchdown, but it's not a make or break right now. He's doing what he needs to do to get the targets, so I'm good with it. It can come next week.
I'll go the guy throwing him the ball. Jordan, yes, the one bonehead play that he can't seem to avoid per game. But, I mean, I'm not going to excuse it. You can't throw interceptions in the red zone, but I get it. Like, you look at that whole drive, they're down there on his back. Like, he backpacked the team from the first play of the game through up till the interception. He got them down there. And you get into that 3rd and 5, it's not a good decision. Understand what's probably going through his head where he's like, oh, great. Again, immediate pressure up the middle. I'm flushed. I got to leave the pocket. No one's open. It's easy for everyone to say, like, just throw it away. You're turning the ball over to a guy who hasn't kicked in like 2 years, played in the USFL, and Lambeau isn't exactly the easiest place to kick a field goal. So, like, I do hate when people equate it to, it's so, like, cut and dry that, like, oh, it's, like, no, I'm not here to say interceptions are good or fine or anything like that. I'm not one of those people either. But I do understand where he was. And then after that throw, he's fucking nails the rest of the game. Maybe he might have bailed a couple pockets early here and there, but the way that O-line was playing in the first half, it was not a good performance to start the day off. And time and again, he just answered the bell. I will go into my rant right now. So I'm seeing a lot of people criticize him for his decision to slide on the late second down, the second down right before the 2 minute warning. Love's mistake there is sliding instead of diving. And there's three reasons for this. So, one, he makes the correct decision to stay in bounds and keep the clock running because, okay, if he, everyone's like, oh my God, there's so much room. There are three defenders there. And if he gets shoved out of bounds, one, the game is under 5 minutes, so the clock stops and doesn't start till the next snap. So you don't get to the 2 minute warning or force Cincinnati to call timeout. That gets even worse if he doesn't get the first down because then you might still end up short of the 2 minute warning without getting a first down if you don't convert the third down. So that side of it, like I've seen so many people like, oh, he chickened out or he's not a winner because he slid. I'm like, no, that's the right football move to keep the clock rolling. The second part of it is if you dive, you don't get the whole like the play is marked where you start sliding. If you dive forward, you get the full extension, and then as long as he's protecting the football, the way the rule book works is that whole the quarterback giving up, like any sort of a dive or when your elbow or knee touches the ground, that is the play is dead at that point. So as long as you have the ball at that point, and you can just dive like flat and down, like don't dive, like don't Superman dive up or anything like that. But at least that way you maintain the yardage you're trying to get, you keep the ball in bounds, and you're protecting it and stuff. So and yeah, everyone's like, oh, just run into the it's a corner. I'm like, the last thing he can do there is run into the corner who holds him up and a linebacker either concusses him or pulls the ball out. Like, people look at it as like, oh, they didn't convert the third down, so it's a bad process. And I've seen people do the whole like, oh, that's what he did against Cleveland. And I'm like, even the Cleveland one, no, I don't need my star quarterback taking on a fucking linebacker in the middle of the field. And like I said, this one too, especially because you're dealing with the variable of the sideline, you're dealing with, you gotta make Cincy either call a timeout or use the 2 minute warning. I still do not understand the concept of saving a timeout for after the 2 minute warning. That part of coaching absolutely blows my mind. Like I don't understand how we got there. But
I don't get LaFleur's obsession with the timeouts anyway, because it's either we're going to waste them all or we're going to save them all for when we don't need them.
yeah, but what's it called? I'm just kind of like I'm totally fine with how he handled it there. And even the play after, I know some people are like, take the sack. I'm like, no! Like, again, this kicker, he's had a good day to this point, but why are you going to make it harder on the kicker? Like, he made a
Yeah.
safe throwaway. Like, yeah, got his touchdown, ran the ball when the team needed him to. I thought he was really decisive in a lot of his reads. Ironically, I think a couple of the times I didn't like some of his reads was when he was throwing hitches to Romeo against man. Everyone knows I'm like the biggest Romeo Dobbs fan. That's not the route you need to be using Romeo Dobbs on. Like, he's, you saw him hit Dobbs for the hitch against zone. That's the one you want because Dobbs will turn up field quick, secure the ball, all that kind of stuff. But against man, it's like he's gonna just try box the guy out. And you saw it both times where he looked like a center calling for a pass kind of thing where it's like, okay, like I'm here. And then Love isn't that kind of pinpoint accurate passer where it's like, I'm going to throw it half a guy outside of him where it's going to take him away from the defender kind of thing and stuff. That's just not Jordan's game. And so those are like the only like rough reads outside of the interception where I was like, okay, Jordan, like there's got to be someone else.
On the one screen, the wide receiver screen that he tried to throw where it was gobbled up like real quick.
Right. And
maybe you could have you should have saw that in your pre-read, but there's not the interception was probably the worst thing out of them all.
Yeah.
Maybe you should have overthrown it a little bit more. Let Dobbs try to make a play on it instead of throwing it short. I probably would have thrown it out and just if not give the kicker a try, then hell, just go for it and shit like that. Because either way, If the kicker misses, they take over at that spot. You fail to convert, they take over at that spot. So it whereas if you throw the interception, you don't know what's going to happen.
You get no more
There could
chances
always,
at points. Like that's the thing is, yeah,
yeah,
you're done trying to get points on that drive.
yeah. So it's just I think I would have played a little bit different, but obviously they don't pay me millions of dollars to play quarterback in the NFL, so I'm not out there making the decisions. I just see it on the TV. But like I said, that wide receiver screen really kind of bugged me because it's like you can see the defender creeping up on it because he's red, and it just gets blown to hell. So it's like, did you not make your pre-reads and were able to audible it, or is LaFleur in your headset saying stick with the play?
Yeah, I think that was one more where I think Love kind of got tricked. I think he was like, "Oh, there's like too many guys in the box. I'm just gonna wing it out there." And yeah, I agree with you. Those are ones where I get it. Your O line's not blocking that well, but also like you've got one guy to block two out there, and like those are the ones where it's kind of dead on arrival and stuff. And those are the ones where I do think either you got to just check to a totally different play or just hand it off to Jacobs and just be like, all right, Josh, like just go run four people over and try and get me 4 yards kind of thing and live with it. So yeah.
Steal a soul, like mentioned in our merchandise over on shop.fourthwall.com.
Yep.
See, you got to get these in at some point. But yeah, I mean, Jordan had a hell of a game. And like you said, he was lights out once after the interception. There was really not any, it's not like he had a multi-interception game like we probably would have seen in the past. And, he really settled in. Again, there were some decisions. I know True North in the live stream said somebody needs to teach Jordan how to properly slide and that, but I think you just got to live with what you got, and he's going to give you what he can. You're going to get at least one stupid mistake a game, but there's no such thing as a perfect quarterback. Because even Aaron Rodgers, for as good as he was in his prime, how many sacks did he take? How many throwaways did he have? Because he just didn't trust his wide receivers to make the play for him, so he didn't want to throw the ball. So you're going to have that kind of stuff. We've just been spoiled by Rodgers because it didn't seem like he was pulling stupid stunts. But when you actually sit down and think about it and rewatch some of that crap, it's like, why did you take the sack? Why aren't you throwing the ball? Why aren't you doing this? So, like I said, I wonder if it's Jordan not seeing some of this stuff or if he's got LaFleur telling him just stick with the script.
Yeah. Like I said, it would be one thing if this O-line was perfect and all that kind of stuff, but with all the moving parts on this offense, I'm like, Jordan's doing more than enough to win these games. Like, that's my take on it, is like, he's carrying more than his fair share of the load. And I get it. He's your franchise quarterback. He's getting paid the big money, all that kind of stuff, but there's some guys who got to start rowing in the same direction on this team, and I'm going to leave it at that for now. Anyone else for fresh for you?
Well, yeah, you got to throw Josh Jacobs in there because I think this was probably his best game of the season so far. I mean, he's been good with what he can deal with, but like you were just saying with Jordan, with the offensive line that they've been putting out there, Josh hasn't really been able to get completely going. You can say the Dallas Cowboys game was probably his coming out game of the season, but I think this one really was because you saw what Josh Jacobs was really capable of when he had the openings to do it. Both with the ball, running the ball and catching the ball. And, what was it? 93 yards on the ground. And then he had another 57 through the air and 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, this is what Josh Jacobs can be when he's given the opportune time. And then come to find out he's been sick. Now, I didn't hear it. I just saw the tweets and stuff like that talking about how he was talking about being sick after the game and nobody knew it leading up. So I don't know, was it like the flu or stomach bug or something?
Probably like a flu kind of thing or something. Hopefully, just like a 24-hour bug kind of thing, because you don't want him flying cross country with that sort of issue and stuff. But yeah, he said like, oh, and I was wired up and I had to puke before the game, during the game, after the game kind of thing. And he made this comment about like, oh, like I hope they cut that from the tape, and everyone's like, don't cut that from the tape. But no,
So
I agree with you. Like, he had the overall total counting stats against Dallas the previous game, but today was like a truly efficient, explosive looking game, which ironic because he was exploding from one end kind of thing and stuff. But yeah, like I mean
maybe
his second
explosive isn't the right word to use in that situation.
but like his second touchdown run, he doesn't make that run like a couple weeks ago because he just hasn't looked that fresh and explosive. And he like I know that was probably like that might have been the best blocked run play of the season for the Packers, but he sees that hole, puts his foot in the ground, and he's just gone kind of thing. And I know he gets some contact, but you're not when he has his head of steam up like that, you're not stopping Jacobs at that point. So
And then he throws that stiff arm out there, and you definitely aren't stopping him.
yeah, and today is one of those games where that whole thing with him not having a receiving touchdown until last season and still only having the one is one of the most weird stats in the NFL because he is a really underrated pass catching running back. Like I know he had those couple of swing passes against Cleveland where like Jordan was just a little off and all that stuff, but some of the catches he made today, like he had the one down in the red zone where Jordan steps up in the pocket. It is like kind of like last second dart throwing the ball to him, and it comes out a little high and a little behind. And like the rule with throwing to running backs and tight ends is always like, don't make them work for it. Like put it on them and like just let them catch it and go kind of thing. And he went and kind of like had to snag it up and behind him kind of thing, and he was able to bring it down and turn up field and get first and goal. Set up his first touchdown run. So it's just a really good sign, and it's just so important for this team. And you saw it on that one, was it a third or the fourth down where they do the bootleg and the ball is definitely supposed to go to Jacobs, and instead since he's like, oh fuck, and they put like 3 defenders on him, and so Jordan goes and cuts up field and gets the first down with his legs and stuff. So getting Jacobs active in both phases is really important. I know some people had some stuff to say about like, Wilson getting a few carries. Jacobs can't get 25 to 30 carries every game. That just doesn't work in the modern NFL.
Unless you start playing like LaFleur has tried to tell us they play with, all gas, no fucking break, or wake up with your piss on.
Right.
If they start scoring, 40 to 50 points a game, then you can start giving him, 20 to 25 carries a game.
Yeah. So, and I know a lot of people are going to say like, oh, he had 23 touches, catching, receptions, and carries are not the same. Like the toll they take on your body is a lot different when you have 4 guys hitting you and tackling you versus like one guy who's like just kind of shoving you out the sideline kind of thing. So yeah, it's a totally different thing. Any honorable mentions or anything like that you got?
Well, I had to look it up because I guess I didn't realize he went out with an injury at some point. But Lucas Van Ness, he had the lone sack for the game. I guess it's a foot injury.
They said he didn't break anything so far, so that's obviously a good sign that
it's probably going to come back and be
foot sprain kind of thing.
Or what's the one? Not a Liz Frank, the plantar fasciitis.
Oh, maybe.
Which sucks.
Yeah.
And because they're thinking he's going to get an MRI tomorrow, but they're thinking it's more a soft tissue, and that would be a little bit what plantar fasciitis is more of your soft tissue than anything. But I thought he looked really good. Like I said, he had the lone sack of the game in the run game. He was in the pile. He was continuously in amongst the group. I guess you can throw that in there as a total. They were swarming again. which was really looking good on defense. It wasn't just one guy making a tackle; it was a group of them, and so Lucas has really turned it around. So here's hoping it's not anything too major with the foot, and if he has to miss time, it won't be too much time. The only thing that sucks about it are there's rumors that Enigbare could be on the trade block. Well, now those trade rumors may be out the window if Lucas misses any significant time, because if he doesn't, then they have enough depth there, plus Britton Cox coming back. If he misses time, then your depth isn't quite there anymore. So, here's to hoping, knock on wood, it's nothing too major. And, if he has to miss a game, miss a game. But, hopefully he's back out there soon.
Yeah, it's one of the like the Enigbare stuff. I throw it almost into the same bin as the Dobbs stuff, where it's kind of like I just don't see the value in trading him unless you're getting like a corner that can actually play this season for you, or maybe an O lineman. But who's really trading that kind of piece for a piece in the season? It would be
My
nice if it happens, but yeah, the main point is whatever happens, I just want Lucas to be healthy because he's played really well this season. He's about second to last or last on my list for the guy who gets a sack by timing the snap. Like his like that was potentially the best use of his athleticism I've ever seen him have as a pro, where you can see him watching the ball, and when he sees that thing start to move, he's already going into submarine mode to get under Orlando Brown, because he's like, I know that I've got this guy, and if I can just get under him, I got it. Like it's toast kind of thing and stuff, man.
I think that's a bit of the Micah effect. That Micah, because since Parsons has joined the Packers, he's raved about Lucas Van Ness. So I'm wondering if that's a lot to do with Micah kind of taking him under his wing and saying, "Hey, kid, you've," I guess not kid, because they're relatively around the same age. I think Micah's not too much older than him, but hey, Lucas, you've got the ability. I see it in you. Let's work on this together. And you know, if you don't have any more, we can move into our next segment here in a minute,
Yeah,
because I do want to talk a little bit about something. But with the Enigbare stuff, I view it similar to the Rasul Douglas thing, where he's only got half a year left on his contract. He's getting kind of eaten up with the depth chart. Brenton Cox is on his. Theoretically, we're hitting that spot where Cox can come back off of the IR. Does he really have a? And he's really not been contributing as much this year. So it's like, if I got a team saying, "Hey, we'll give you a fourth round pick for him," you just flipped a fifth rounder for a fourth rounder. So I mean, like I said, depending the Lucas injury, I would consider it. Now, I would ship him more to the Jaguars than I would the 49ers, because if the 49ers make any kind of run, there's a chance that you meet them up in the playoffs, and I don't want to play, I don't want to see the story being the Enigbare revenge game by any means. But, like I said, if you've got a team offering you something decent, like, with Rasul, it was they're offering you a third round pick, I think you go for it, especially considering you don't have first round picks for the next 2 years.
yeah, definitely. Like you said, it's something you've got to consider, because yeah, your hands are tied in terms of what you're able to do moving forward. But yeah, I think that kind of does it for our.
And one more thing, just to kind of cap it off, because it just popped in my mind. If he leaves at the end of the season as a free agent, most likely the fourth round pick, that if somebody offers you a fourth round pick, is going to be higher than the comp pick that you're going to get.
Oh
out
yeah,
of it. So that's why I'm saying, somebody's sitting there offering me hell, if somebody offers me a third round pick, we're doing the trade tomorrow. But so yeah, okay, we can move on. Let me hit the button.
What's this stale shit?
So since I went first, I'll let you go first on this one because I don't think you're going to be happy with me with my next one.
So my main still one for today is LaFleur. I'm gonna not bag on him totally because one drive in this game got me aroused, but overall it was another first half where he kind of like almost looked like he was panicking in a sense where it's like, oh no, my O line isn't doing anything, and I like you could tell he was like, it's the video of like a chef who's got too many burners on and like food is starting to like get burnt and stuff, and you might be setting the fire alarm off and all, and did not like him punting on 4th and 5 at the end of the half. Like I feel like that's one of those opportunities where you've got all the momentum. And like I know everyone's gonna say like, well, look, Cincinnati missed the 67-yard field goal, blah blah blah. I'm like, yeah, but also look at it. You did all that to avoid giving up points, and they still marched it right down to get into field goal range with limited time. Like you gained what 30 yards of field, 40 yards of field position, and it didn't mean shit. So that's just my
And
attitude on
also,
that
the
kind of
only
stuff.
reason that they missed the 67-yarder was because he luckily was able to get the timeout called in time.
Yeah.
If he didn't, that was good. It bounced off the upright and went over. It was good. It was going to be a record field goal.
Yep. So, alas,
And I completely agree. That's what I keep saying. I know this is it's a win. It was a team the Packers were supposed to beat and all that stuff, but there were a ton of points left on the field. And you never want to see points left on the field. It's kind of like I know you guys were kind of roasting me in our group chat yesterday because I had went off on the Kirk Ferentz Iowa Hawkeyes, even though the Hawkeye and I know Wisconsinites, plug your ears, the Hawkeyes decimated the Badgers, but it was the same old shit that it's like you guys could have won like 73-0, but you left so many points on the board. You went back to your same old shit to, you know, with the Packers. It was in the third quarter. Now all of a sudden the defense, or not the third quarter, the fourth quarter. Now all the sudden the defense doesn't want to play football. In the like you said, it seemed like the last part of the first half and the first part of the second half, the offense didn't want to play football. So it just, there were so many other things that they could have done. This could have easily been another game where it could have been 43 to not or 42 to nothing or 42-7 or something like that. But he let off the gas and he turtled, kind of joke because that's what Kawano and his kids are going as for Halloween. They turtled, and so it just, I don't know. We got the win. I guess you can consider us nitpicking, but it's going to hurt when it comes to games coming up like the Steelers, the Eagles, the Vikings, those types of teams, because you can't just leave points out on the field and expect to win those games.
and yeah, and like I understand the O line has been kind of a tire fire and stuff, but like got to you've got to know that that's your problem. Like that's the thing that's frustrating is like as like I said, I would understand if the O line was really good and then all these injuries happened like today, and then it's LaFleur going, oh shit, like how do I, like okay, I've got to like change everything up on the fly. It's like you've known for 2 weeks that your O line has struggled and has issues. You've got three guys who have injury designations coming into the game who Tom didn't start this game off very well. I didn't think Walker was very good at all today. And
And
like
I said
Tom,
it on the Elon machine that I'm wondering if the quad and the oblique were bothering them more because neither one of them were playing
yeah,
up to snuff.
Tom looked better as the game went on, but early on he looked, I'm going to just say he looked horrible, honestly. He couldn't move. He looked like he was either saving himself or just like could
You
yeah,
also have
or
to
into
remember Hendrickson went out of the game at a certain point too,
right.
so
And
you're gonna
that's
have
the
to
other
deal with
thing
that.
is like all the success in the second half is really good, but the one guy that you're like, that's the guy to watch out for, he was gone, kind of thing. We'll go into it a little more with Arizona. Arizona doesn't have a great defensive front or anything. So this is, again, another week of like, ugh, they have problems. Is it time to worry and stuff like that? But it's only stale because they did get the run game going in the second half. Jacobs had a healthy 5.5 yards per carry. Overall as a team, you averaged 4.6, and that's including Love's like 2 kneel downs in the game and stuff. And that last touchdown drive where you go back up 24-10, finally we saw a drive that was fueled where every play on the drive had a run look to it. And that is the part that I'm like, that's the offense. Like, that's what it's supposed to be. I know that it definitely works way better from under center than in the gun, even with the whirly bird and all that kind of shit. But that drive where Cincinnati has gotten back in it and is kind of getting traction and stuff, to go and just say, okay, we're gonna play action, run the ball, play action, run the ball, play action, touchdown, Tucker Craft kind of thing. Like, that's the kind of stuff where you just haven't seen LaFleur do that in, part of it was Love was injured last year and, all that kind of stuff. But I like, that is one of those where I'm like, okay, like, that's what's boosting the grade for me. Is like, and it's a little bit back to the, like, when they had to score, they were able to put together some drive. Like, we'll worry about the defense. We'll talk about the stuff that was plaguing the defense in the second half, but the offense also was scoring on every drive in the second half. So LaFleur gets some hay for that. But it shouldn't take you a whole half to get your shit figured out. When you come in off a bye knowing what your issues are, it shouldn't be a surprise that, oh, we're struggling to, Tom isn't moving, Zach Tom isn't moving very well, Rashid's not moving very well. Like, it,
Banks isn't moving very well.
yeah, the concern I have there is like, okay, and I'm seeing a lot of people that are like, Jordan Morgan took the right guard spot from Sean Ryan. I'm like, what if Rashid is hurt or aggravates his injury further? Now what are you doing at left tackle and at right guard? Like, that's the part that I'm like, I shut my eyes and, shut and roll my eyes and kind of exhale deeply, and like, I just don't know what the plan is, kind of thing. But that's where I lose patience, sleep, whatever and stuff, is because I'm like, those are the questions that really need to be answered. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Morgan in at right guard was the difference. His play over Ryan was the difference in this game being a win and a loss. I can't say that right now. But to me, it's like, I just don't know what the point is. Like, that's the part where I'm I'm a lot concerned about where the direction of this team is. Because, like I said, if Walker turns the wrong way and that quad like rips on him, it's like, well, now what the fuck? Like that. So, like I said, you won the game. He did manage. He used his timeouts well. Called the timeout on Evan McPherson. What's it called? He was, and then I think there was a couple situations where he did call some good timeouts on defense where it looked like Green Bay was a little scrambled in the second half. So I think one of them was on the final drive right before Cincinnati was about to kick a field goal and stuff. So, better overall game management.
I think that was the only weird one, was that they had just come out of the 2-minute warning and he wasted a timeout.
And
right.
to me, that's not wasting it, because I'm like, okay, if you saw something that tic-tac-toe checkmates your play that you've called, you've got to call the timeout there. Like that. And I saw some people like, but I'm like, that wasn't a case of like they look confused or anything. That looked like a case of like LaFleur looking like, this is fucked. Like, I know the play they eventually ran didn't work as well, but to me, the people that are aching over that timeout after the 2-minute warning, I'm like, no, that's exactly why with the lead you should have all your timeouts, is so that in a game crucial moment you can be like, wait, like, let's talk this one over again. This one's not passing the smell test for us. What's your stale?
So, now don't hate me for this. I've got to say for Sean Gary. And the reason I'm going to say that is because we all know what's going on with Micah. Micah's being disruptive. Micah's getting double teamed. Micah's there were more calls today that weren't called because of holding and stuff like that. I can't fully give the refs too hard of a time because they kept the flag in their pocket for the majority of the game unless it was like majorly egregious or it was very visible. But Rashawn looked slow today, and I mean slower than normal on certain plays. And he's outside of like the first 2 weeks where he got the majority of his sacks, he's not really taken advantage of Micah being on the opposite side of him. And that's the only reason it's stale right now. If it continues on, especially when Wyatt comes back or, they get the D line figured out or whatever, then it's going to be a little bit more concerning. But it's stale right now just because, like I said, it just seemed like he was slower than normal today. He wasn't taking advantage of, there towards the end, Mims went out. Well, he didn't take advantage of having, uh, I don't want to call him a rookie because he's not a rookie, but a cold guy. This would be like putting in a reliever without warming him up any. And he wasn't taking advantage of that. I don't know. Did he have any pressures today?
He had at least two. Well, it's going to depend on how each site grades pressures and all that kind of stuff. He had the one where he's very clearly in Flacco's face, and Flacco just throws a dirt ball. I can't remember if it was a broken screen or if it was one of the ones where he just threw it at a guy's feet. We'll have a talk about that later. And then he had one where he got the edge, and it wasn't like he tried to speed rush, but it's like the only angle he had was to take the edge, and he got it, but there was no interior pressure, so Flacco kind of just stepped up a half step kind of thing. I agree. Okay, so I'll start this with saying, in a sense, I agree. I do agree that Rashawn should be doing more. I'm not gonna just sit here and say like it's all because of scheme or what the other team is doing and stuff. Because yes, like you said, we saw a lot. He was leading the NFL in sacks 2 weeks ago or 2 games ago, and he can definitely do better. Like he didn't accident into 4.5 sacks over the first 3 games, like or the first 3 games. That's not the case. That said, I agree. Like you keeping it in the stale is because like there's a lot more dominoes happening than just Rashawn's doing nothing. Part of it is, and it's something that I've gone into on Twitter, is like, what's it like? Halfley at some point, and I understand not wanting to do this against the Bengals receivers, but at some point, Halfley's going to have to understand that the corners you got are the corners you got, and you're gonna you have this pass rush. But what have we seen from every team the past 3 weeks? Is they get into the second half of these games and the pro style offense goes out the fucking window. Everything is a 3-step drop or a screen pass, or it's Dak like playing like a fucking MVP and throwing it off his back foot and letting the football gods put the ball in his receiver's hands, kind of thing. So Halfley's got to understand, like, okay, if you keep playing soft coverage, umbrella coverage, and allowing these quarterbacks relief valve options, your pass rush is never getting home. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is the shit we were grilling LaFleur for after the last game. It's like part of it is Rashawn is your strong side end. Like there's no dispute between if the two starters are Rashawn and Parsons. Rashawn's your strong side end. Parsons is your weak side end. Rashawn, I understand that everyone's like, oh, but Parsons is seeing the double teams on pass plays. Rashawn still has to read out his run responsibilities. He has set some good edges in the run game. And if they're, teams are like, he's on the strong side. So when they load up for a run play, it's like, okay, I've got to check for a puller, check for this, set the edge and all that kind of stuff. That's the other thing. Like, I would be a different kind of upset at Rashawn if we're always up 17 or more, and he's just not doing anything as a pass rusher. But it's kind of like the O line where I'm like, okay, like we haven't seen this team get to play a truly. The other team is in a pass only situation, and on top of it, it's like they're playing, call it bullshit college offense stuff. It's like everything is a 3-step drop and out. Like the Jamar Chase touchdown, I don't know if Flacco dropped on that play. He just got the shotgun snap and was like, fuck it, he's down there somewhere. And like I said, I understand where Halfley's coming from, that it's like, okay, like I can't just let these guys get eaten alive by this receiving core. We've got to get a win here, all that kind of stuff. But when you get against the better teams on the schedule, there's gonna be matchups, and your ace in the hole is your pass rush, and you can't let it die because the quarterback is getting the ball out in 3 seconds or less. Flacco, everything was out in a flash. Rodgers, in 2 weeks, he's like leading the league by half a second in terms of shortest time to throw or some shit like that. So Halfley's gonna have to make some decisions in that area. But suffice it to say, as much as I'm not blowing the horn yet or anything like that, I do need more from Rashawn. I agree with you. Like, you can't be getting paid what you have the guy across from you that you got and not have a impact play in a while kind of thing. Like, I was hoping
basically what I'm saying. That's why I have a stale right now. Is
Yeah.
he's not giving us what we need because of the guys that I could understand if he didn't have Micah Parsons on the other side, and he was struggling a little bit, because then he's the premier pass rusher on the team that people are going to double team and all that good stuff. But he's still playing like he doesn't have that premier guy on the other side. He's still showing that thing. And I understand what you're saying about, he's got all this other shit that he's got to do. But, when he was going, like there was one, and I couldn't tell you what point in the game it was, but he was clearly going after the quarterback, and he just kept doing the shuffle feet, shuffle feet, shuffle feet. And it's like, why aren't you driving on the guy?
Right, and that's one of those. I get that if like you're using him to contain the pocket against a Jaden Daniels or something like that, but this Joe Flacco, who like made it very clear, like, boys, I don't want to get hit today. Like, he made it blatantly obvious early in the game, like, every ball is going 2 feet in the dirt in front of my receiver if I'm not seeing what I want to see, kind of thing. And so yeah, you're right. And it's not like he was getting blocked by a tight end either on those plays. So I don't have anything, like I said, those are the ones where I totally agree with you. I need more. Like, I need more from my number 2, 1A, whatever you want to call yourself, Rashawn. I need more. And I thought we had kind of gotten past this a little bit, because the Cleveland game, he has the 2 loud sacks in the first half of that game, and we haven't seen many impact plays. He's had a couple like TFL or run stop kind of things, but it's like we need more impact in the pass game.
And the ESPN did credit him with 2 QB hits today.
Yeah, like I said, he definitely had the one where Flacco was like Rashawn was doing the thing where he had both hands up as he runs at him, kind of thing, and you can tell, like, so there was definitely that one, and I think there's another one where he kind of got there a little late and stuff. But yeah, it's one of those where it's like, we do need more from you, big guy.
So yeah, that's my stale. Do you got any other ones that you want to?
I agree with you that they rallied better to tackles this week than they did the previous, but I think they're in this weird like twilight zone of where they're like sacrificing the just getting guys to the ground to try and hold guys up to punch at the ball. And I'm like, no, like, get the tackle first. If you Charles Woodson or Charles Tillman, the guy on the way down, that's great. But like the play that kicked off Cincinnati's second half scoring barrage is a 3rd and 2 that gets stuffed in the backfield. And then you have 3 Packers on the running back. And then for whatever reason, none of them is like, let me cut the guy's legs out. They're all like, let's go get the ball. And then the fucking right guard comes in and jumps on the pile and pushes it forward and stuff. That's another one we're earmarking for later. Like, I've got some problems with this ref crew in terms of their game control. There were some glaring deficiencies, but I feel like I don't even know how to qualify what I'm concerned about with the tackling. Like I said, I agree with you. It's good to see that they're gang tackling again, unlike the Dallas game and parts like the late parts of the Cleveland game where you can tell they got tired. But there was just something about it where it's like, you do know that the initial point is to get the guy on the ground as fast as you can, kind of thing. And I worry that Halfley's comments about like, oh yeah, we have to create more takeover opportunities, and forced fumbles is one of them, and the Packers are the only team without a forced fumble, and all that kind of shit. The only way this defense gets screwed is if it gets stuck on the field for too long. And when you have plays like that 3rd and 2 where you could have got the guy, should have got the guy down for a loss or a stop, and you hold him up to try and rip the ball and end up giving up a first down, it's like, no, you guys lost the plot. Get off the fucking field. I don't care that it's not a turnover. Like, you've got it's 4th down and they're not going for it at that point of the field.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's warts all over this game, but it was just, like I said, good to see them get back to the rally. And I think that's the one good thing Halfley's brought from the college ranks was
Yes.
this isn't a single person tackle. You need to be at that ball. I don't care if you're a defensive back. I don't care if you're a D lineman. I don't care what you are. That we need group people, a meeting at the ball carrier. So yeah, there are some issues with it, but I'm glad that they're making their way back to that.
All right.
Did you have any other ones that you wanted to go stale?
No, I think that's it.
I have one that we're gonna go ahead and jump into the stinky because it can go in, or moldy. It can go in both.
It's a moldy cheese.
And it's kind of a mixture of people, groups, whatever. It's like you were mentioning with Halfley's like soft zone coverage on top of our corners doing nothing but chirping. And I understand you want to have that attitude with it, and it's good. It's fun to see them chirp when they have a successful play, but don't be chirping on one play and then get blown up the next play.
Well, and then like the one that really stands out to me is, Carrington Valentine makes a really nice play on the final Bengals scoring drive where he breaks up kind of like I said, one of Flacco's fadeaway throws where he's like, I don't want to get hit kind of thing. But it's like he starts celebrating and the ball is still floating in there. It's like, dude, go get the ball. Like,
well, and there was
he's
kind of the main one that I was talking about because he makes a play on the ball, and even the announcers said it like he saw that he was going to probably get nailed with
Trent Green was great today. I mean, Harlan is always excellent, but Trent Green was excellent today.
And you could see it where he was going to start celebrating over, I think it was Chase, and then he turned and started celebrating down the sideline instead because he knew he would have got a flag for taunting. But then it was like a play or two later, he's the one that gave up a big catch. It's like, I get all for celebrations, all for chirping, all for running your mouth, but make sure you're consistent out on the field before you do it.
Yep.
And that's why I said it can either go in the stale or it can be in the moldy just because how it plays out.
And then one of the other ones for me that was borderline, like, oh my God. It was in the first half and Flacco throws up like a duck, but it's like a deep duck. And Higgins, I think luckily the refs correctly deemed the ball was uncatchable. But Nixon goes and shoves Higgins in the chest as the ball soars over their head. And I'm like, why even invite the chance that the ref could be like, that's DPI kind of thing? And it's just one of those like, dumbass, like read the room kind of thing. And I agree with you. Like I said, the pass rush by the advanced stats there, and I've seen a lot of people be like, they're getting pressures, but it doesn't matter because it doesn't mean anything. I'm like, to me, this is a 60-40, 70-30 problem on the secondary. because every time these guys are a split second away from making a game changing play, the ball's coming out, whether it's because someone is just wide open or, like I said, Dak just having a on one MVP night game on Sunday Night Football before the bye week. So, like, yeah, to me, this is more of a secondary coaching philosophy, decision making process. And that's the thing, too, is like, you can still play two shell. And to me, my personal opinion on it is they should be as aggressive in coverage as possible because of the two safeties that the coverage ability, especially of Xavier McKinney, but Evan has been pretty solid in coverage. And your pass rush, if you give them any extra split second to make a play, they're going to eat offensive lines up. So, and I agree with you. Like, it is the whole, like, the stereotypical, the Chihuahua and the Mastiff, and it's like the Mastiff's the one doing all the heavy lifting, and the Chihuahua's always the loud yappy one kind of thing. And it's like, none of you are making the plays because you're just an elite cover guy. At least you haven't proven to be yet, kind of thing. So, like you said, I totally agree. It's stale, moldy border. I'll let it lean more stale because it didn't cost them today, but there were multiple instances where you're kind of like, yeah.
And actually, I lean it towards a little bit more moldy just because of the Halfley play call with them being on, soft zone coverage. And we put this out there on the post game show with Brian that it's weird because he was kind of trashing on Carrington, and I know there's probably people on the Elon machine and stuff like that are trashing on Carrington, but you got guys that are more press man coverage guys, and you're putting them in soft zone. It's kind of the similar thing like they did with Josh Jackson, the opposite way, where Josh Jackson was a better soft zone corner, and they were trying to make him a press man corner. And it's kind of that balance right there that's like, I think Carrington is a very good corner if you put him in the right situation. I think Nixon, as much as I don't think he's a true number one corner, can be a solid corner if you put him in the right situation. And the soft zone is not their situation.
People were ripping on him on the sequence that led up to the Jamar Chase touchdown. If that's any other receiver that's not at least Justin Jefferson, he's probably got a couple pass breakups and maybe an interception out of that sequence kind of thing. And yeah, I think, I have such a hard time with it because I'm like, on one hand, I don't expect more out of the corners because I kind of like, it's a B minus C plus room, and any resistance is good resistance out of that unit. But at the same time, it's like where you're getting at. It's like, don't make the dumb backbreaking mistakes. Don't make stupid penalties that cost your team. Don't leave meat on the bone because you're too busy celebrating. Don't get burnt right after you make the one nice play you're gonna have again. I agree with you. So yeah, I'm in total agreement with you there. Like I said, I think it's just the whole. I've had such like less than lukewarm expectations for this corner room that I'm like, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, we need a Asante Samuel Jr. You know that, right?
He might have the same neck fusions you've got at this point.
So what do you got for a moldy?
Okay, so Brad Allen's crew. I'm not even going to get into the whole how many times was Micah held, all that kind of stuff. I've just accepted, especially talking to a lot of Cowboys fans, Micah's going to get held relentlessly, and it's up to the other guy to make something. Micah's still going to make his dozen plays a season kind of thing, so everyone else has to pull their own weight. So first off, Evan McPherson shouldn't have even had a fucking chance to kick the 67-yard field goal because why are you reviewing Jacobs going in or being tackled in or out of bounds so fucking late in the play clock? They let like 30 seconds tick off before someone in their goddamn brilliance in New York is like, let's take a look at this. And you can see LaFleur is pissed. and he's like, what's happening? And I think he got even more pissed because the Packers had a situation where I believe it was 2019 where Jimmy Graham got tackled and it looked like he went out of bounds, but they were like, oh, he fumbled it, so it's inbounds and the clock should run and stuff. And I think LaFleur's like, so are you going to give me a 10-second runoff? And they were like, no. And I think LaFleur was like, then what the fuck are we doing here? Because he's very clearly tackled inbounds. And I say that because if you look at the mechanics of how they handle it after that play, the floor was probably going to run the clock down on that sequence. You know, they were doing their usual, like, get to the line of scrimmage, read out the play, all that kind of stuff. I'm sure LaFleur had a play in momentum, you know, right after Jacobs picks up 5 yards. It's like, let's go right into this next play and stuff. All those kind of things. And LaFleur is rightfully absolutely livid with like the referee, like, so I get nothing out of this. Like, and like I said, it'd be one thing if it was even close. It was not close at all. Like, Jacobs doesn't, nothing touches out of bounds until he's very clearly down in bounds. And so, like I said, why am I so upset about it? Because you flash forward and the Bengals are snapping and spiking the ball with somehow 1 second left on the clock. First off, I think it's absolute horseshit that they put the second back on the clock. I don't think they even got the snap for the spike off with a second left on the clock. Like, that's how slow I thought the Bengals operation was there. But to me, that whole, no, we're definitely putting a second back on, like, screw you, Brad. Like, no, that's absolute horseshit to pull that move on our drive and then to be like, nah, put a second back on the clock. It's like, no, that second don't fucking exist anymore. And then you have just some weird. Okay, and then, like I said, controlling the pace of the game. So the third down play we referenced earlier, where Green Bay has the play stacked up, and then they like, you know, I know that they had mic issues and you couldn't really hear the whistle at any point of this game, but they just let that third down play go, and that play was stoned. Like, the running back was not going anywhere. Forward progress be damned. And they're like, I wonder if my dinner reservation. Oh shit, the play's still going. Oh look, he's moving forward now, kind of thing. And it's like, dude, he was stoned, and I. So this isn't even a matter of like, you're fine with it when it works out in Green Bay. No, when the ones that Green Bay gets are where it's a mush the whole time through. The pile is creeping forward no matter what, kind of thing. That one was dead in the water, and then you're like, oh, let's see if something happens here, kind of thing. It's like, dude, like, call the play. There, you know what's really stupid about it is the NFL has this really bad habit of, oh, we'll let the boundaries be pushed, but when someone suffers a fucking catastrophic leg injury, oh my god, point of emphasis, we're gonna change it. And flash it forward later in the game, the Packers string out a swing pass or a sweep play, and Chase Brown is dead to rights stuffed. And they're letting him do the thing where he's like kind of hopping on a leg as two guys have his other leg in the pile. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, there's no forward progress. Blow the play dead. And that's why I see people that are like, oh, Hopper's whistle was soft. No, like, there's three refs in his face blowing the whistle, but also at the same time, it's the whole, I hate when refs can't control a game and then they get flustered and upset that players are pushing the boundary and they're like, we'll start throwing more flags or we'll start calling more foul. It's like, no, you guys failed at your job in the first place, and then you're like, oh, we're gonna paper mache over it to make it look better. Like, no, do your job correctly in the first goddamn place. So yeah, like,
There was one that I noticed that I was like, how did you not throw the flag on that? And it was the one where they got to the it was on a Bengals scoring drive, and they got to like the half-yard line, and then they got the penalty that pulled them back, and then they were able to push forward a little bit further towards the goal line, and it was flat out. I think it was the tackle.
it was Orlando Brown. And so
He jumped. He was off. I mean, he false started. It was clear as day, and they just let it go.
And that was the touchdown play. And so when they throw the flag, I was like, oh, good, they actually called it. And then they're like, no, defensive hold. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, it was at my tweets out there. I'm like, he doesn't play for the Chiefs anymore. Like, he
Yeah,
plays for
it
the
was
Bengals.
crazy. And I just said, because I was trying to make, I was cooking food at the time too, so I'm like halfway in the kitchen, halfway out into by the TV, what's going on. And they were calling the play just then, and I watched him jump. I was like, no flag? I mean, I get it that we complain when there's too many flags, and then we complain when there's not that many flags, but there are just some things that you've got to call it. And then there were a
Right.
couple of times that they called DPI on the Packers, but they let the Bengals corners get away with, because I know Harlan and Green both called it out a couple of times. They were like, well, I think he was there a little bit early. You could see the jersey tug on
Right.
this, but then they didn't call anything.
Yeah. There was that. It was the one Dobbs hitch where, like I said, I still don't care for that play, but DJ Turner was definitely there early on that one. And then, of course, snarky Packers fans were like, well, fuck it. We're just going to go tackle Jamar Chase before the play happens, kind of thing. All that kind of stuff. And the one I'll say all the time is you've got to call the blatant stuff. The one play, like, I understand that, like, okay, you're going to give blockers the benefit of the doubt against Micah Parsons, which that's one of those things that I'm like, do you want your superstars to be superstars? Or, like, I've never understood that train of thought in, like, every sport except for basketball. Basketball is the only one that goes in the opposite direction and is like, we're way too lenient on the superstars. But, like, with Parsons, like, it was always the Dallas fans, if you look, they're all kind of laughing now. They're like, Packers fans, you see it now, kind of thing. But it's like, is he just so good that you can't give him a fair shot? But I'm like, okay, as much as I don't agree with it, I'll bite and say, okay, maybe, you can't throw a flag on everything. But you cannot let go of the plays where he is so clearly tackled by an offensive lineman, or the ones where it's like when a blitzing linebacker or a blitzing Parson comes through the middle, and it's like he's not carrying a suitcase behind him. He's not gonna run after the quarterback with an arm like this. It's one of those where I'm like, you have to suspend your disbelief and use the gumption of your better judgment that there is a hold there. And if you need to get New York City more involved with that kind of stuff, so be it. And these aren't even the ones where we say all the time, like, 4K TVs, you can see the blades of grass, and that's why you can see these different things. Where, like, no, the Orlando Brown false start, blatant. The Micah Parsons being tackled. Oh wait, he plays defense. Blatant. Like, those are the ones that absolutely cannot be missed. And, like, you have the one where in this Detroit Kansas City game where the referee, and I know Detroit fans are gonna bitch and moan about it, they absolutely got the call right that Jared Goff illegally motioned before the play. Like, and you see the ones where it's like, oh, New York has called and has like pre-reviewed and assisted review and shit like that. You should not be doing any of that shit if you're not going to be like, you guys got to drop a flag. That was blatantly something. And then, since we're on a referent, the other one is you cannot let quarterbacks throw intentional ground balls. Like, I know that the
That's why
rules.
I've always been confused about the intentional grounding thing, because it's like you'll let them throw it directly into the ground by the feet of an offensive lineman, but if he happens to throw it out of bounds with nobody around and he's not in a certain area, you're going to call it intentional grounding.
Right. And where I hate it is, okay, the one thing I'll give passes is screen passes, because screen passes are like, it's there or it's not there. And, like, okay, like, you got us. Like, fine. But what Flacco was doing, what Tom Brady did for a bunch of his career, where it's like, like the Dak play from 2 weeks ago, where because the whole point of intentional grounding, the reason the rule was written is to keep quarterbacks from avoiding taking sacks. That's the whole point of the play. Why do you, first off, have it written in a way where And I know that refs want to say like, "Oh, we don't want intent brought in." You fuckers don't know how to rule intent is a problem or not anyway. So miss me with that bullshit. If a quarterback bounces a ball 4 feet in front of a receiver to the point where the receiver's just like like makes no effort to catch it, that should be intentional grounding. Like I said, the plays where Flacco gets a flash of green in his peripheral vision and he's like, this thing's going in the ground or it's going out of bounds, that should be intentional grounding. Dak Prescott throwing it over his pass protecting running back, that's supposed to be intentional grounding. And the thing is that when it's called on the borderline correctly, but it's like on the fringe where everyone's like, oh, did he really get out of the tackle box or did he really not have a receiver area? And I will say it every time, like, like the one, Dallas fans were like, oh, well, you got the Jordan Love one. I said, no, they're two different plays because on Jordan's one, he is making a very clear effort to get outside of the pocket and he's making a very clear effort to get it towards Musgrave. Like, Musgrave is running a route and like Musgrave maybe should look for the ball earlier and make it not look as bad kind of thing. But like, he is very clearly like still trying to make a play. That is a completely different thing than Dak, like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Javonte Williams is right there. I'm throw it laterally almost over him. And then for the rest to be like, oh, the running back's there and the tight end is there 8 yards down the field. Like I said, to have a rule, you have so many rules that protect the quarterback. You can't land on them. You can't hit them in the face. You can't slap them on X. You can't fart in their face. The low block rule is another one that I think is really stupid. The Chargers got called for one today where it's like he should have like there are so many rules that benefit the offense. And the one part about the low block rule is you should not let guys submarine O linemen's knees. Like that's the intent of the rule. But if the guy like I hate when refs are like, oh, he needs to stay up high in the block early for longer. I'm like, there's a 300-pound guy pushing downwards on a 200-pound cornerback. What do you think is going to happen? Like, is the corner supposed to blow both knees out by getting pushed over backwards on the play? Like, these are the kind of rules where I'm like, you guys so often with like intentional grounding and shit like that, you say you don't want there to be intent. Like, why then do you have these other plays where it's like the cornerback is like, no, that rule is to stop O linemen from blowing their knees out from low hits kind of thing. Like, you guys don't even know why these rules are in your rule book. If your refs to a man, like, and that's the thing, you always hear those like refs talk about like, we have these seminars and it's a great sign when 60% of the room gets the same feeling on a rule. I'm like, that's horrible. Like they're like, oh, we put this play situation up and 60% of them get the thing right. That's wrong. No. That means your rule is broken. There's not supposed to be a dissertation or a freaking grad school level argument debate over what is or isn't a catch or what is or isn't intentional grounding. These things need to be much more black and white. And like I said, you can say intent does and doesn't matter, but the whole point of intentional grounding is that quarterbacks are not supposed to be able to dirt the ball to avoid sacks. And like the way you know the rule is stupid is that non-quarterbacks on trick plays don't get the protection. That's how you know the rule is absolutely broken. Refs don't know how to call it. It's one of those where it should be challengeable, and New York should be involved on all of those if you challenge it, kind of thing. Like I said, the way that the league is, intent shouldn't be involved in a call versus, oh no, maybe intent on this one. I'm like, what the hell are you guys doing? But wrap that all up. That's my rant on the officiating today.
I really can't think of anything else that I would call moldy because, like I said, this was outside of a handful of things. It was a good win. Should they have scored more points? Yeah, but what are you going to do about it? This is the team that we've got. This is the coaching style that we've got. So you can't really complain about special teams because they did what they needed to do, especially with a
They made it
kickers.
one play without a penalty.
Yeah.
I made the joke on the Elon machine that everyone's like, "Oh my god, Havrizik looks actually not bad." I'm like, "Yeah, because he hasn't been around long enough for Basacci to fuck him up."
So, yeah, I mean, I think we covered what we needed to with the moldy part of it. Because unless you've got anything else, I think that pretty much covered it all.
No, I think that's it. I think, like I said, this game, this obviously everyone would love to win every game 63 to nothing, have no stress and all that kind of stuff. That's just not how football seasons work. Getting a win, getting back in the win column, securing a home victory, all that kind of stuff. You take, thank you, Chiefs. You take back the division lead. You're now, now by virtue of win percentage because of the time. I know I'm going to hear a lot about this, but you're technically the second seed in the NFC right now if the season were to end today because of the fact that you have one fewer hole loss than the rest of the league or the rest of the conference behind the Bucks. So because everyone else has every other division winner or division leader has 2 L's to their record. So, like, as frustrating as it's been to get here, like, it's good that they're, like I said, at the top. This is still a young team. It's frustrating. It's teeth gnawing. It's knuckle grinding. But they figured out how to secure a win this week after they've let 2 get away from him the past 2 weeks. And you need to see them build on that, build on that, build on that. Like I brought up before the Cleveland game, this is a big test for them. I know Arizona's not very good, but you've got to fly cross country to go play them. And that game is I think it's just the later.
325.
Yeah, so it's noon for the Packers, but the first time you fly cross country, it's always is kind of a test for your team. So really need to see. And LaFleur teams haven't done that great flying cross country. 2019 had the bad game against the Chargers, the bad game against the 49ers, 2 bad games against the 49ers.
This is kind of a bad stretch for them anyway, because they go to Arizona for the Cardinals and then they fly back to Pittsburgh for the Steelers. So they've got to cross the country.
Well, and then to touch on that a little more, the bummer thing about that Pittsburgh game is Pittsburgh's coming off their the Thursday night game this week, so they're gonna get the mini bye. So once again, LaFleur, if there's going to be any week where you're going to use a little bit more allotment of your 600 points for the season, this is the one to pour it on early in the game. And hey, sometimes it's good if your backup quarterback gets in the game by your own choice, by your team's performance being great. This is one of those weeks to strive for that. And the more...
This is the week that you tell these guys to get that killer mentality, because right now, if I remember right, Aaron Rodgers has beaten 31 out of 32 teams. We cannot let him get that 32nd win.
Yep. So, like I said, those are topics for another day. We'll get into that as we get to those opponent previews. But a lot on the table for the Packers. Keep stacking successes. Keep piling up wins. Like I said, they haven't done that very well the past 2 seasons under Love and LaFleur. Get in the habit of piling up early season wins so that you can be in the hunt for higher seeding, be in control of a division, be the team getting chased or attempted to be chased. Make that your goal. Don't just, we're looking to be a little better than yesterday. Yes, that's the first step, but have higher goals than that.
And this is a rough stretch coming up because you got Cardinals, Steelers, Panthers, Eagles, Giants, and then you get into your North teams. Yeah. So, I mean, this is the stretch that's going to make or break the season, really.
Because if you look at it by, like, record of opponent, advanced stats, all that kind of stuff, Arizona, New York, Minnesota, those are games that, like, you've got to figure out a way to win those games because those are all NFC teams. You got to... And, even the Steelers are a little bit of a paper tiger, but, if Rodgers is feeling hot and you let him play the way he wants to play, he'll tear you up kind of thing. So you got to change up what you're doing and just be the aggressors. Like you said, be the attacking force going into the next month of the season and really establish your team identity. Like I said, that last touchdown drive should be how this offense operates 90% of the time. everything has a run fake or run look to it, because that's the best way to protect this O-line, to therefore protect Jordan Love and to get big plays down the field. And hopefully along the way you get a little more healthy, you get a Christian Watson back, you get guys coming off IR, DR, like what's it called? From Cox to Colin Oliver to whatever you can get out of Marshawn Lloyd, to hell, if you get any decent play out of Jacob Monk, that's a backup that you at least know, kind of thing and stuff. So get wins, get healthy. That's the name of the game at this point. So anything else, Joe, or are we done for the night?
I think we need to because we're about at an hour and a half. So
It's the first win in a month. We've got a lot to celebrate. Check us out, ohanapackers.org. Check out the merch. Tuckercraft, he only got 2 official targets, I think. Yeah, 2 official targets today, and he burned that house down on his touchdown reception. So check out Joe. Joe's got a lot of ideas in his head. Thank you, Don, for helping Joe out with the shop. If you go to the website, the shop is linked there. So check that, click that tab, support us that way. Check out articles from Carlos, from me, from Joe when he decides to write one. All the previous episodes of this show and Chief Talk Radio are on there as well. Please follow the podcast on your favorite social medias, at Ohana_Packers on Twitter, at Ohana Packers Edition on Instagram. Search us on Facebook. Like I said, I'm going to keep saying it until it happens. We're targeting 100 followers at minimum on Facebook, so when we do live streams, we can have that situated over there, ready to go as well. Excuse me. Please follow us on your favorite podcasting apps. Please give us a like and a subscribe. And I know we went a little long and deep in the coverage on this one, but especially for the opponent previews, but also for our game recaps, if you've got any comments, any thoughts, please send them our way so we can talk about the things that are on your guys' minds as well. For Iowa Joe, I'm Mike. We're back in the win column. We're back atop the NFC North. Go Pack, go, and aloha.
Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for the up. Let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for you know who wanna go.